Chapter 7: Cryptography. One of the fundamental technology of Ethereum is cryptography, a branch of mathematics that has been widely used in computer security. Cryptography in Greek means encrypted writing, but the study of cryptography involves more than just encrypting writing, called encryption. Of example, cryptography may also be used to prove knowledge of a secret without revealing the secret or to prove data validity, e.g., with digital fingerprints, also known as hashes. These types of cryptographic proofs are mathematical resources that are vital to the Ethereum platform's operation, and indeed all blockchain systems, and are often used extensively in Ethereum applications. Notice that no part of the Ethereum protocol at the time of publication requires encryption. That is, all communications with the Ethereum network and between nodes, including transaction data, are encrypted and can be read necessarily by anybody. It is so that everybody can check the accuracy of state reports and achieve consensus. Advanced cryptographic methods, such as zero-knowledge proofs and homomorphic encryption, will be available in the future that will enable certain encrypted calculations to be documented on the blockchain, while also allowing for consensus. However, although provision has been made for them, they have yet to be introduced. Throughout this chapter, we will present some of the cryptography used in Ethereum, namely public key cryptography, PKC, which is used in the form of private keys and addresses to regulate ownership of the funds. Keys and addresses. Ethereum has two separate forms of accounts, as we saw earlier in this book: externally owned accounts, EOAs, and contracts. Ether ownership by EOAs is defined by means of digital private keys, Ethereum addresses, and digital signatures. The private keys are at the core of every contact with Ethereum between users. Basically, account addresses are directly derived from private keys. A private key uniquely defines a single Ethereum address, also known as an account. In the Ethereum network, private keys are in no way used directly. They are never shared or stored on Ethereum. In other words, private keys will remain private and never appear in messages that are forwarded to the network, nor should they be kept on-chain. Only account addresses and digital signatures are ever transmitted and kept on Ethereum. See Control Responsibility and Wallets chapter for more detail about how to keep the private keys safe and stable. Digital signatures provide access and control of funds, which are also generated using the private key. Ethereum transactions involve the inclusion of the legitimate digital signature in the blockchain. Anyone possessing a copy of a private key has power over the relevant account and any other it contains. The digital signatures in Ethereum transactions indicate the true owner of the money, as they prove ownership of the private key if a user keeps the private key secure. In systems based on public key cryptography, such as those used by Ethereum, keys come in pairs comprising of a personal key and a public key. Think of the public key that's related to a bank account number, and the private key as similar to the hidden PIN. It is the latter which provides control over the account, and the former which identifies it to others. Ethereum users very seldom see the private keys themselves. For the most part, they are stored in special files, in encrypted form, and handled by Ethereum wallet software. In the payment part of an Ethereum transaction, the intended recipient is identified by an Ethereum address that is used in the same manner as the bank transfer information of the beneficiary account. As we shall see in more information soon, the public key component of a key pair creates an Ethereum address for an EOA. Nevertheless, not all Ethereum addresses are public-private key pairs. They can also represent contracts that are not backed by private keys, as we will see in Smart Contracts chapter. We will first discuss basic cryptography in a little more detail in the rest of this chapter, and clarify the mathematics used in Ethereum. We'll then look at how to create, store, and handle keys. Eventually, we will study the different types of encoding used to represent private keys, public keys, and addresses. Public key cryptography and cryptocurrency. Public key cryptography can also be called asymmetric cryptography, is a central part of the protection of modern-day knowledge. The key exchange protocol, first published by Martin Hellman, Whitfield Diffie, and Ralph Merkle in the 1970s, was a seminal development that sparked the first big wave of public interest in cryptographic field. Before the 1970s, governments kept secret on deep cryptographic information. Public key cryptography uses specific keys to get information protected. Such keys are based on mathematical functions with a special property. They are easy to calculate, but difficult to calculate the inverse. Cryptography enables the development of digital secrets and unforgivable digital signatures based on these functions, which are protected by mathematical rules. For instance, it is trivial to multiply two large prime numbers together, but given the product of two big primes, the primary factors, an issue called prime factorization, are very difficult to find. Let's say representing the 8,018,009th number and telling you it's the two primes product. It is much more difficult for you to find these two primes than for me to add them to generate 8,018,009. When you have hidden knowledge, some of these mathematical functions can be easily reversed. When I tell you in the previous example that one of the prime factors is 2003, you will trivially find the other with a simple division. These functions are also referred to as trapdoor functions because they are very hard to invent unless you get a piece of hidden knowledge that can be used as a workaround to reverse the function. A more advanced group of mathematical functions that is useful in cryptography is based on elliptic curve with arithmetic operations. Multiplication module is a prime in elliptical curve arithmetic, but division, the reverse, is virtually impossible. This is named the discrete logarithm problem, and no known trapdoors currently exist. Elliptic curve cryptography is commonly used in modern computer systems, and is the basis for the use of private keys and digital signatures by Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. Cryptographic hash functions. Cryptographic hash functions are used mostly in Ethereum. In reality, hash functions are widely used in nearly all cryptographic systems, a reality captured by cryptographer Bruce Schneider that said, much more than encryption algorithms, one-way hash functions are the workhorses of modern cryptography. In this segment, we'll discuss hash functions, explore their basic properties, and see how those properties make them so useful in so many mode areas. Here, we discuss hash functions since they are part of Ethereum's transformation of public keys into addresses. They can also be used to establish digital fingerprints, which will aid in data verification. Simply put, a hash function is any function that can be used to map arbitrary size data to fixed size data. Pre-image, message, or simply input data is called the input to a hash function. This is called hash efficiency. Cryptographic hash functions are a special subcategory with unique properties that are useful for protecting platforms like Ethereum, for example. A cryptographic hash function maps arbitrary size data to a string of bits of fixed size. The one-way existence means the reconstruction of input data is computationally unfeasible if one only knows the hash of output. The only way to evaluate a potential input is to perform a brute force search, searching each candidate for a similar output, considering that the search space is practically infinite. The practical complexity of the task is easy to understand. Also, if you find some input data generating a matching hash, the original input data may not be. Hash functions are many-to-one functions. Finding a hash collision is called finding two sets of input data that hash to the same result. The higher the hash function, the more likely the hash collisions are. Those are practically unlikely for Ethereum. Let's look more closely at the key properties of cryptographic hash functions, including determinism. A given input message will always yield the same hash output. Verifiability. Effective hash computation of a message is linear complexity. Non-correlation. A minor change to the message, e.g., a 1-bit update, will so thoroughly alter the hash performance that it cannot be compared to the original message hash. Irreversibility. It is infeasible to compute the message from this hash, similar to a brute force search for all possible messages. Collision security. Two unalike messages which generate the same hash output should be infeasible to calculate. Hash collision resistance is particularly important to prevent forgery of digital signatures in Ethereum. The combination of such properties makes cryptographic hash functions useful for a broad variety of security applications, including data fingerprinting, password integrity, error detection, proof of work, authentication, password hazing and key stretching, pseudo-random number generators, message commitment, commit reveal mechanisms, unique identifiers. Ethereum cryptographic hash function, KEKAC, was developed by National Institute of Science and Technology as an applicant for the SHA-3 cryptographic hash function competition held in 2007. KEKAC was the winning algorithm, being standardized in 2015 as the Federal Information Processing Standard 202. Nevertheless, the NIST standardization was not yet finalized during the time when the Ethereum was being created. After the completion of the standards process, NIST changed some of the KEKAC's criteria, allegedly to increase its performance. It happened at the same time as courageous whistleblower Edward Snowden released documents that indicate that the National Security Agency may have secretly manipulated NIST to deliberately weaken the standard dual EC DRBG random number generator, potentially putting a loophole in the standard random number generator. This controversy related in a backlash against the planned reforms and a majority delay in SHA-3 standardization. Around the time the Ethereum Foundation agreed to adopt the original KEKAC algorithm as suggested by its investors, rather than the NIST-modified SHA-3 norm. Note, while you can see SHA-3 listed in Ethereum documents and code, many, if not all, of those illustrations actually talk about KEKAC 256, not the finalized standard FIPS 202 SHA-3. The variations in implementation are small, having to do with padding parameters, but they are important in that KEKAC 256 produces different hash outputs for the same input from FIPS 202 SH3.